It's a pleasure to be here today, talking with an esteemed panel of credit union professionals who have a lot of experience, working with military members in their field of membership. And we're honored to be here today, especially after Veterans Day and lots of things going on in our country. And this is a great way to talk about all the good that we can do as credit unions. And so I'm honored to be here representing defense credit unions across the country and in 16 countries worldwide. And so those of you that don't know about DCUC, we represent about 32 million memberships worldwide with our defense credit unions. And so I'm excited to hear from these credit union professionals. They each have a unique story and something to offer in terms of some insight. And I hope you all can glean some good nuggets of knowledge from each one of these panels. And so I'm going to start off asking a couple of questions, and I'm going to go to Mr. Bobby Michael, who's the president and CEO of All-In Federal Credit Union down at Fort Rucker, Alabama. We're representing that military installation in Dothan, Alabama. And so Bobby, can you tell us a little bit about your credit union journey in the credit union movement and kind of what you've seen along the way and what you hope to see in the future?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Tony. I was an accounting finance major in college, got my first job with a CPA firm, and all they did was audit credit unions. And to be honest with you, my first day, like most college graduates, had no idea what a credit union was. But somebody was going to pay me to audit them, and as a college graduate, I took the job and did that for about 3 years, traveling all across the country, and met CEOs from AC Cowens down in Orlando to other ones up in New Mexico and Hartford, Connecticut and stuff, and just really enjoyed the meeting all these executives. And then got an opportunity. One of our clients wanted me to become their CFO, and that's when I kind of crossed the table and became a credit union employee, and have just been very blessed to have fallen into this wonderful industry with great people. And after a few years of that, thought, I think I could do this job, and got us my first CEO position at 31, and here we are. Sad to say, 20 years later, and leading, the third largest credit union in the state of Alabama at All-In Credit Union, formerly Army Aviation Center Federal Credit Union. And just very thankful of the great team I have here. We have wonderful members, a very supportive board. With regard to the future of the credit union, we're very proud as to the partnerships that we've had with some fintechs, which has helped us grow geographically, increased our membership almost from throughout the country. But I think the thing that we're very the proudest of is we take our partners and the revenues that we're making, and we're expanding geographically in our underserved communities. We look at it like, to be honest with you, a lot of us, we're nonprofit financial cooperatives, and a lot of people think making money is bad. Profit is bad. We're supposed to give everything to the members. But in our case, and our board supports this view of making a revenue isn't necessarily bad if you take that profit and turn it into the ability to serve people in smaller communities that are underserved, underbanked, and don't have very many choices other than maybe a mega national bank, where they're going to not get great service because the loan's going to not get approved till 17 days later when somebody 14 states away finally looks at it. But more importantly than that is our mission of helping people stay away from payday lenders and finance companies that are charging 48% interest and doing these payday loans that have the equivalent of 400% interest. So we look at it like our responsibility is to go and reach underserved people in smaller communities that may have one or zero banking options, and give them the opportunity to better themselves financially through the products and services and rates that we provide them. So that's what we're excited about with regards to the future of our organization.
That's great, Bobby. Thanks. And I'll come back to you in a bit, because I'd like to hear more about Fort Rucker being the nexus of all Army aviation. So a huge student population coming through, taking care of those needs, but also the permanent party there at Fort Rucker as well. We'll come back to that in a bit. Right now, I'd like to pitch to Keith Hoskins, who's the Executive Vice President of Branch Operations at Navy Federal Credit Union, and also down at Naval Air Station Pensacola. And Keith, tell us a little about your journey and a little bit about your background. You have a unique background, in the military, and so tell us a little bit about that as well.
All right, thank you so much, Tony, and thanks for having me as part of this amazing opportunity to be a panelist among these amazing leaders in the credit union industry. And thanks to AACUC and DCUC. Really appreciate all the support and partnership. So I like to say that my journey started in the credit union industry as a member. I joined Navy Federal Credit Union back in the 90s while I was active duty. So I joined the Navy in 1989 and retired in 2016. So I had a 27-year career with the Navy. Was primarily a naval aviator and had the opportunity to serve at bases all across the nation with a lot of overseas deployments. So as a member of a credit union, I can tell you that my experiences immediately were different than the bank that I had previously held all of my finances. And I can tell you that going along my financial journey with a credit union and understanding the care and the passion around member service is really what led me to where I am today at Navy Federal Credit Union. I can tell you that when I retired from the military in 2016, I didn't know exactly what industry I was going to enter in. I had the opportunity to join the utility industry, and it was Gulf Power, which was a operating company which fell under Southern Company out of Atlanta. And I was the general manager for the entire Western District of the Northwest Florida region. Well, guess who my largest commercial customer was? It was Navy Federal Credit Union. So Navy Federal Credit Union, we started a campus here in Pensacola back in 2003. Started with one building, and now we have 8 buildings and over 8,500 employees here just in Pensacola. So I had the opportunity to really build relationships with the leadership team here at Navy Federal Credit Union. Truth be told, when I retired, I wanted a job at Navy Federal Credit Union, but there just wasn't any positions available that fit my leadership and my skills at that particular time. Well, the head executive got promoted to the chief operating officer, moved to Washington, D.C. That position was available to lead the campus here at Navy Federal, and I applied for that role and got hired. So I came to Navy Federal back in April of 2019, led the campus, continued to grow the campus and finish the phase 2 construction project. And then had the opportunity last March to get promoted into my current role. Is now I oversee the 356 worldwide branches that we have in our network. One thing I can tell you, Tony, is that when you leave the military, I had the opportunity, like many on this panel and that are here on this call, I got to wear the cloth of our nation, got to wear the flag on the side of my shoulder. And every man and woman that I served with, they understood our mission. They understood what their purpose was. And the ultimate role is post-military is to find a role that you have similar people because that's what you grew up with in the military. And I can tell you that with Navy Federal Credit Union and all the credit unions that I've had the opportunity to engage with, that in fact is so true. Credit unions truly understand their members, and everyone is focused on their membership. So have an opportunity to work in the credit union industry is just fantastic for me post-military career. Really enjoyed that opportunity. In terms of the future, Tony, and what I'm really excited about is I'm excited about just particularly for us at Navy Federal, we've been on a strategic journey for the last 2.5 years where we focused on scalable and flexible in terms of our technology, buying down our technology debt, enhancing our technology operations. We've also been very focused on member centricity, which is our North Star in terms of how we provide that exceptional world-class service to our members. And then lastly, and just as important, is our employee-powered goal, where we're focused on our team member and our employee experience. So one thing I'm very excited about is we are looking at how do we continue to build our organization and structured around a center-led, member-centric organization that is just hyper passionate about the member experience. It's at the center of everything that we do. We integrate insights. We integrate, data, using data for insights where we can anticipate the needs of our members, enhancing all of our channels through ATMs, our branches, our contact center, which is 24/7, our digital platforms with our app and online, all the while just to better support our members. So that's something I'm really excited about moving forward.
Well, thanks, Keith. And I'll come back to you, talk a little bit more about, your background, particularly, the demonstration team that you were a part of and the teamwork that was involved in executing that particular mission. Because for those of you who don't know, Keith was a member of the Navy Blue Angels. And so that's a precision flying team, and it takes a lot of teamwork. So I'll come back to that in a little bit, but thanks. Now I'd like to move to Ken McKinney, who's the chairman of Andrews Federal Credit Union near Andrews Air Force Base. Ken and I had a background in military comptrollership, and interested to hear from you, Ken, on your credit union journey.
So, Tony, thanks for the introduction. Certainly, Renee, thank you for the invitation as well, AACUC. And certainly a great opportunity to be a member of distinguished panel members as well. I think I was a military brat, so I think I could probably say my journey started way back then, because I remember going to the credit unions with my parents, as we moved around from place to place. So got that early exposure, if you will. And then, I came into the Air Force in 1979, and my first assignment after college was Travis Air Force Base, right outside northeast of San Francisco. And one of the first things I did the first week there was go join Travis Federal Credit Union. And it's funny because, as I look back on the journey, every place I moved, I joined the host-based credit union, and kept the membership for a number of years. Little did I know that in my future that I'd be given an opportunity to serve in a capacity as a volunteer with credit unions. And so toward the latter part of my career, I retired in 2006, but a friend of mine invited me to be a member of Andrews Federal Credit Union Supervisory Committee. So that's how I started. And did that for a number of years. And then, somebody said, "Hey, we think we'd like for you to be a board member." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Hadn't expected that, but that happened. Thank you very much for that vote of confidence there. And then the rest is history. I just got elected chairman in June of this year. I will say that it has certainly been a blessing in a number of ways. As we all know, the Bible says, "To whom much is given, much is expected." And so this is my small way of giving back to mankind, as we talk about in the credit union industry of people helping people. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Tony, you mentioned about military service and the importance of teamwork. And that's what we're talking about here as well, as we take a look at the morals and values and ethics, that we have inside the credit union industry. Again, giving back to people, in a number of ways, whether that be big city or small town or rural area, as Bobby mentioned earlier, So I think it's been a great ride. Have a great C-suite group of folks there, great members, employees, As it relates to our future, a couple of things, just like Keith said, it's about the member experience at the end of the day, and how best can you enhance that and give back to each of our members. And we try to do that in a number of ways. Obviously, you taking a look at trying to reduce wait times from a customer perspective, getting involved more so in the community. That outreach piece there is very important, reaching out and touching members, as well as, the products and services that we offer. It's a very competitive market across the industry. So how can we do our best to get a slight competitive edge, not only for our members, but to enhance the membership? So that's a big challenge. Looking at the quality of the things that we do from a 360-degree perspective, trying to streamline processes. And there's also, as Keith mentioned, taking a look at the digital platform. How can we make that better going into the future? Because, when you take a look at the different generations, throughout the country, the younger people, everything has to be where they can do it in a couple of clicks on their phone. That's what they want to have, access to that, that mobile platform, and doing everything so they don't have to, get off the couch to do any of their financial commitments and or, things that they need to have done from their individual perspective. So those are some of the things that we're focusing on. Again, I want to say thank you, Tony, from DCUC, and thank you, Renee, for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. And I'll come back to you. Andrews has a very important, very high profile mission as well. And lots of junior enlisted there making things happen, especially with, the presidential airlift, group being there, and, all the flight attendants and the cooks that's taking, and the security and the maintenance that's taken to make that mission a success, in addition to everything else. And so we'll come back to that a little bit later, because that's a unique mission set you find nowhere else. That big hangar out there, when I play golf, I always see that and wonder what's going on now, right? But that's a unique mission. Right now, I'd like to turn to John Broda, who's the president and CEO of the Armed Forces Financial Network. And I've known John for a long time, and he's seen, what credit unions, do each and every day to serve the military. And John, tell us a little bit about Armed Forces Financial Network and what you see, in terms of, how we serve our military members.
Sure. Thank you, Tony. To my brother in service, thank you. And to Renee and her board as well, thank you for inviting me today. Before I talk about AFN, I would say from my credit union experience, I'm the proud member owner, third generation of my military credit union, Picatinny Federal Credit Union up here in Northwest New Jersey. My grandparents were very early members back in 1939, 1940, joining the credit union. My parents banked there as well as I. And being part of a blue collar family, credit union services were important to my family. My dad, going through layoffs at his plant and plant shutdown and not having a paycheck and living paycheck to almost paycheck, the credit union was an invaluable piece, an integral piece of my family's plan for success, right? And my dad's first generation American. His dad and grandfather immigrated to this country as coal miners. My his father passed, my dad was 13, and all of a sudden he's head of household. So he didn't have an education. In fact, couldn't write a check, right? Couldn't balance accounts. And here I am, a high school student, teaching my father how to manage finances from what I learned and what I knew through the credit union. So again, in my family, credit unions were there. They were part of the community. I often catch slack in my family because I never worked at a credit union. I worked at a bank in town throughout high school and college because as a young man, I didn't have transportation, right? So I would take the bus or walk to work, and the credit union was on base, and it was further away from our home. So I never got to actually be employed by a credit union. But after college, I came into the technology space. This is in 1980s when ATMs were taking off. And I saw that as something I wanted to learn and work with. And so I left the banking industry, but have always remained in the financial sector and came over to the technology side. And that's where I've continued to support credit unions and defense credit unions for, 37 years of my career. So I've seen technology serve our members. I can go back to the old days of posting passbooks, interest off of microfiche and manually reconciling off the NCR machines to the IBM technology of ATMs in the 80s, and now we're looking at IATM. So technology has also been a part of our career and our service to the credit union industry. I've been blessed as far as future, Tony. Technology always is at the bleeding edge here, and certainly on the philanthropic side to see what we can do to inspire others to do good and be kind in our people helping people mission. But I'm most excited, I think, from the generational future outlook is we've been blessed to know some great pioneers in this industry who some of them are no longer with us. And I'm excited about the next generation of credit union execs and up and coming superstars that we've met through DCUC and AACUC, and to watch them continue with the philosophy of people helping people and truly service to others.
Well, you said it, John. I know at conferences, and not just DCUC conferences, but AACUC and a lot of the other credit union events, you see a new generation of CEOs. It's the same thing I saw when I was in the military. When you see a new commander taking the guide on, and all those fresh ideas that have been someone wanted the opportunity to get to use those and unleash that creativity. And I'm seeing that in our industry as well across the board, and that's kind of neat to see. And I know, John, I'll come back to you in a little bit. When we talk about the future and some of the things that we're working with the African American Credit Union Coalition in terms of our cross-cultural exchange program. And you were a recent participant and part of that cohort. So I'll come back to you with questions on the cross-cultural exchange program. I know, Keith, you participated in that too. So we'll briefly touch on that before we get done. But I'd like to go back to Bobby, and talk about Fort Rucker and how All In Credit Union is serving the soldiers at Fort Rucker and making a difference, not just for active duty military, but for veterans that remain, because a lot of them, love to fly helicopters and love to teach, and that remain in the Dothan, Alabama community. So what things is your credit union doing, kind of as a mirror for what all defense credit unions, or really all credit unions, are doing in terms of serving the military? Bobby?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're a pretty diverse base. We do have some newer soldiers here. We also have some more seasoned pilots that come in here, and generally they're not starting their military career flying a helicopter. So oftentimes they've re-upped before they become a pilot. One of the things that we do for our younger soldiers to really help them is what we call our You Choose account. And it's basically a checking account, but without any checks. So as bouncing checks is where people tend to get themselves in trouble and tend to get into that overdraft protection. So our product is a card only product, meaning if they've got the money and they swipe the card, the transaction goes through. If they've got the money, if they don't have the money and they swipe the card, the transaction doesn't go through and they can't buy the merchandise or eat at the restaurant. But at the same time, they're not paying overdraft protection fees and bounce check fees. So it's really a good tool for our younger members to keep them from getting themselves into trouble. They can still do, purchase things, and they can have their payroll deposited to their account. It just puts some kind of guardrails on them. Let's make sure they start off not getting themselves into trouble as they start off. For our more senior military folks and veterans, we are very proud of our dividend rates. Generally, we kind of track ourselves to peer credit unions our size, 500 million and above, and generally our cost of funds, which is the same as the average amount of dividends we pay our members, is generally twice what peer are. So we're really proud of helping our older soldiers and our veterans survive and save for retirement. And we're again glad to provide them with those great dividends. MWR, we're big donors to military, to morale welfare and our rec departments here. The other thing we do, if I mentioned this before, is we try to really surround this base with billboards and branches so that when they leave base, they see us and our products and services and what we offer before they get, again, to those payday lenders and those finance companies and those title pawn organizations who obviously aren't going to provide them the safe, reliable, cost-effective financial services that we do. So we just really try to protect these soldiers and give them the very best financial services that they can get in this local area.
That's great, Bobby. And I like what you said about, getting the credit union face in front of eyeballs as much as possible, because, as everybody here on the panel knows, military members they get paid on the 15th and the 1st of every month, right? Everybody knows it. And that's why a lot of payday lenders love to target military members, because it's a steady paycheck. And they're right outside the gate. Either they're title loan companies, pawn shops, payday lenders, whatnot, because it's very attractive. And they know that military members have to pay that in order to maintain some of their clearances and accesses too. So, very important. And you touched on something I'll come back to in a little bit. Financial education is very important, not just for junior military members, but I know general officers and admirals that need to see that, particularly as they're getting ready to transition from military into civilian life. And I saw that myself when I transitioned. A lot of stuff you just don't know because you got used to the paychecks on the 15th and the 1st of each month. And so, how do you make that transition? Keith, I'll come back to you a little bit about what Navy Federal is doing in terms of serving active duty military and the veteran populations. And could you also touch on the importance of teamwork in making things happen as well?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that question. In terms of what we're doing, obviously in my area of responsibility, overseeing our 356 branches worldwide, I'm happy to say that, we have 189 branches worldwide that are located near or on military installations. And we want to make it easy as possible that no matter where our military members might be stationed, that they can visit a brick and mortar branch. And, it's one thing I'm really, really proud of is the fact that we've continued to expand our branch network. Since 2019, we've added just over 40 new branches, 41 to be exact, and we're continuing to grow. Obviously with our contact center, we've got the 24/7, 365 call center. And so no matter where you are worldwide, we want to make sure that we're providing that level of service. And one thing I want to touch on, Tony, is, when you think about our military members and the fact that currently what we've seen some pretty demanding deployment cycles. And when our military members deploy throughout the year, not just our branches, our contact center, but particularly in our branches, we provide tremendous support as it relates to pre and post deployment needs as a trusted financial guide through their journey. There's several things that come to mind. It may be ensuring that they have an approved power of attorney on file, so that their spouse or chosen individual may act on their behalf while they're being, deployed, protecting our country and doing the things that they do. They could also be provided a new instantly issued debit card upon the return stateside if theirs was compromised or lost overseas. We've heard several instances of fraud. We've seen fraud increases where overseas we've had some of our members come back where they've had to replenish some of their cards. We have the capability to do that instantly in our branches. So, oftentimes our branches are one of their last stops before they deploy, one of their first visits when they come back and return. So you asked the question about teamwork, and you asked a question about one of my previous roles when I got to serve, when I was so honored to serve. on the United States Navy's Blue Angels. You know, that's an organization that is built around pride and professionalism, to demonstrate that pride and professionalism on the naval service, both Navy and Marines. And it was interesting. I was doing a town hall with some of my team members, and a question came up. And the question was, what do you think are the two most critical elements or attributes to a team to be successful? I don't know why they picked two. Typically, I'm a man of threes, but they said two. And I said, okay, that's an easy one. Because in the Blue Angels, we talk about trust and confidence. You know, because when you're flying 18 inches wingtip to canopy to another aircraft doing dynamic maneuvers, you have to have that trust and confidence in each other. You have to have the trust in your wingman, the lead, that they are doing precisely what they were trained to do in that particular maneuver. And then all 6 pilots need to have the confidence in each other to ensure that those maneuvers look flawless to the crowd, and that they're safe, they're conducted safely. So I had this whole idea and concept after having that question asked to me, is, you know, really challenging my team as, you know, people leaders. How do you build trust and confidence in your team? Because ultimately, as in the Blue Angels, it's all about an air show and performing, demonstrating that pride and professionalism. You know, as a credit union, and I know I'm speaking for the others on the call, it's all about pride and professionalism, serving those who serve us. And having that pride and professionalism and that trust and confidence in each other, that we're doing the right thing by the member, is so critically important.
Thanks, Keith. And I think that's also important, you know, with military members, you know, sort of expecting that and coming to your credit union, you know, expecting that pride and professionalism and that trust and that integrity as well. And I think that's another great way how credit unions serve the military, or at least distinguish themselves from everybody else in the marketplace in doing that. And so, you know, when military members recognize that, they're with you for life. And we've seen tremendous explosion in at least in DCUC member credit unions in terms of not only the net assets, but the amount of memberships increase for that very reason. And so thanks, Keith, for your answer. That was spot on, as expected, sir. So well done. Ken, turning to you, you know, with Andrews Federal Credit Union being you know, Andrews Air Force Base, and lots of different missions, even a guard mission with F-16s there, which require a lot of precision as well. But how is Andrews Federal Credit Union serving the active duty military members, and then those that remain to stay around in the Washington, D.C. area?
So thank you for that question, Tony. So at Andrews, as you well know, the presidential mission is, I like to say, there's no margin for error. And, you know, I think if you talk to the people that actually physically work there, they certainly recognize that, they accept that challenge, regardless of, you know, who their customer is on a given flight. They understand, you know, we have to do what we have to do to the best of our ability and without any errors, if you will. And so having said that as a backdrop, you know, we at Andrews recognize, you know, the folks that are at the Andrews wing. Of course, we have other services there, you know, Army, Navy detachments, Marines there as well, supporting the mission. But when we look at it in its totality, you know, the military folks, the veterans, the families, you know, what is it that we can do to take care of their financial needs to make their lives easier? You know, whether that's taking a look at, you know, our different products and services that we offer, getting involved in some of the major events that we sponsor, you know, at the military installations, supporting MWR activities, you know, offering financial education. You mentioned that earlier. One of the things that we do, you know, we have branches located in Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands as well. And so we partnered with the Armed Forces Network to offer a bi-weekly financial education virtual program. We hit about 40,000 people, you know, reach out and touch that, listening to that program, you know, every couple of weeks or so. So things of that nature that we think make a difference in people's financial lives on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, other things our folks are doing in the community, whether that's, making donations, through the PTA, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, summer camp type things, working with families as it relates to back to school activities for kids, as well as quarterly award luncheons, Military Appreciation Day, Retiree Appreciation Day, giving scholarship donations. One of the things our folks over in the European Theater also continue to do, and that is provide care packages for the folks that are in Ukraine, which is a real world situation right now. So we like to think those kinds of things, help reach out and touch, the military family, veterans, et cetera. Some of the things that we also do, particularly as a unique in the European theater, we offer, low cost international money transfer platform for them, as well as a low cost European bill pay platform for them as well. And we've received nothing but great compliments and appreciation, from the troops and their families for those areas. Thank you.
That's great, Ken. And you jogged my memory on something we talked with our defense credit unions. In the military, we always, working different levels. We always talked about, you recruit the member, but you retain the family.
Yes.
And I see the same thing with defense credit unions, right? The military members typically learning how to do their job. They're getting their upgrade training, certifications on their job, while they're also training for war if they have to deploy. And so the military member is just busy. They don't have time to think about, checking account balances and credit card, doing all that stuff. That typically falls on the family members, either mom and dad if they're not married yet, or their spouse when they do get married. And so a lot of the programs that we promote, at least with DCUC through our member credit unions, is with the military spouse in mind, right? Because if you can get to that kitchen table issue, that's who you talk to. And you mentioned a lot of great programs. Bobby, you mentioned them too, with MWR and stuff you do. And Ken, you mentioned, scholarships and, there's child care, considerations or spouse employment, whatnot. But that's how you seal that member. And I know Navy Federal does a lot of those things as well, because I see your press releases. So yeah, that's very important from a military credit union standpoint. And then with veterans, it's just exposing. I'm a veteran, and I learn about a new program every other day because it's so big. In fact, I was talking with the chief financial officer for the Veteran Benefits Administration. He works there in the of the VA part that puts out the benefits, and he's learning about new programs all the time. So how do we help our credit unions, not just DCUC members, but all credit unions, understand veteran issues? And it all comes from understanding how military issues work first, all the way through transition. John Broda, I'd like to, you guys, served our military one transaction at a time, right? Worldwide, especially at a time when direct deposit was making its way. And that's when the Armed Forces Financial Network came into being, and serving military members at the commissary, when, like I mentioned, when military spouses had to go and purchase their groceries and do that. Where do you see, from a transaction and a technology standpoint, where do you see that relationship working with credit unions and serving our military?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Certainly I'm the old white-haired balding guy here, right? So the history is here, but I have to give a shout out for our team. AFIN, we always refer to our team as a Special Forces team of 6. Today we have half of our company on this call. I see Ann and Scott are on here as well, so I'd like to shout out to those folks as well. But we have seen technology evolve, just as you all have as consumers, right? And more technology is being pushed to mobile devices and as cards evolve as well. But it comes back down to the connectedness, right? It has to work. And over the past nearly 3 decades, we've connected almost 800,000 ATMs domestically in Oconus, outside of the continental U.S. retailers and merchants on base and off base, but we've also led the industry to make sure that the standards were there, right? In the early days of this industry, and maybe even a decade ago or so, processors would take weekly outages and they would do their maintenance and they would schedule, maintenance windows so they wouldn't inconvenience drive time in the East Coast or drive time in the West Coast. And we always had to keep raising the flag to say, don't forget about our deployed troops and our veterans who are in over 140 countries around the world. You have to take that into consideration. And, again, military pay cycles are important as well, to stay away from those days, to do maintenance and changes, because, those military family members live paycheck to almost paycheck, right, for the most part. And when they need groceries, they need it to work right the first time. They don't need to come back after the credit union's direct deposit went in and now it's updated to the network. And we also know that folks who are deploying it and need to do certain things ahead of their deployment and when they're inbound as well. So we've always been advocates, if it's not on our network or our technology, in the industry itself, to make sure that folks think differently, right? In the credit union industry, we have acronyms. In the military, we have acronyms. The same thing is true in our space as well. So we kind of have to be a translator at times between the military acronyms, and Tony's been a great teacher and friend there, and then what's happening in the industry. So we'll continue to do that. The one thing, Tony, if I have a few minutes here, that I think we're most proud of is connecting our military credit unions to the members that they serve, is our AFM Military Community Support Program. We started it and launched it over 20 years ago. And it's a unique partnership in giving with our military credit unions, number here on the panel today and on the call. But we partner up to do matching grants. We take care of our military members who are staying at a Fisher House from Landstuhl, Germany, right through Florida down to Tripler in Hawaii. In those 20 years, we've given back through our partnerships with DCUC credit unions, $4.5 million. Directly to troops and their families, not to aid organizations that may take money off the top for administration, but really boots on the ground where it's most needed. Over 950 grants given to our partners like All In, and that's about $3 million, and then 23,000 military families and veterans staying at a Fisher House. So that's probably in about another $1.5 million. And we do that, and to Bobby's point, through the profit distribution, right? Profit's not a bad thing. When our board had the vision to say, let's reinvest in our military and community space. So giving back, again, that people helping people philosophy is core and one of our core guiding principles there at AFM because of our military and credit union roots.
Yeah, John, and that linked back to what Keith was saying, it's all got to work at that point of impact, right? No excuses. And having that trust. So when a military member uses their debit card, right, from their checking account and goes to purchase groceries, it's all got to work together. And like Keith was saying, that's that trust, that integrity, and that teamwork that works together. And it's that whole system, pulling together to do things. I want to take some time, we're coming up on our last 15 minutes here, but I want to talk about a little bit about the cross-cultural exchange program. And now, John, you just graduated from that. And then I want to get back to Bobby and talk, maybe share a story about, something that his credit union did in serving them. So I'll come back to you real quick, Bobby. But John, can you you just went through the program. Can you tell a little bit about that, and plus given your experiences in dealing with military credit union and some of the parallels?
Yeah, I think it was an exciting program, and I am not the first here at AFN. Scott Dzinski was in the first cohort. So again, our small team, well represented in the industry, to do the right thing always, right? So leading with integrity, the program allowed me to step back, right, and to re-engage at a different level with leaders like those on the phone here, as a good reminder for me to look at things differently, to take time, weekly, quarterly, monthly, to meet with peers for exchanging of ideas, folks that don't look like you, maybe aren't living in the same, geographical territory, but just a reminder that there is more good out here and we're not alone. And that was a good reminder for me to step back and say, this is time I need to invest for my soul, and recharge, because I'll tell you what, the folks that participated, we're still in touch today. And I'm hoping that we can somehow merge cohort 1 and 2 for that larger connection. But the connectedness was invaluable for me. It was good to see some of our members and possibly new members as well. Board members who I used to work with years ago, like Ms. Lynette Smith. Again, it's the connectedness, right? And a reminder that we are doing good things for the right reason for the most important people who we serve.
Yeah, thanks, John. And that whole program started, just thinking back to military, right? And I was always taught, you mentor outside your race, because you have to in the military. In order to get the mission done, I don't care what you look like or what your background is. Can you get the job done? Ken and I had a common mentor, General Larry Spencer, right? African American, 4-star general. Great leader, and learning from him. Well, maybe we'll come back, Ken, and talk a little bit more about that. Get some of our experiences in the Air Force comptroller arena. But Keith, you went through the cross-cultural exchange program as well. As a military professional and having a mentor outside your race, can you share some of your insights on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to say, as part of the cross-cultural exchange program, one thing that I really appreciated about that program is, we kind of looked at DEI as, obviously there's a lot of awareness around DEI, but how do you operationalize that? And how do you put action? Because, you could celebrate certain heritages throughout the year. You could have Pride Month and you could celebrate it, but we still have individuals that were subject to discrimination or racism or some form of that. So even though we have awareness, how do we move to that next level? And what I really appreciated was leaders were very open and transparent during the discussions, particularly when you would go to the breakout sessions or when you would do the one-on-one calls with your partner. I had some amazing conversations with my partner, and I can tell you, it was enlightening. It was very, very personal, and it was a great safe space to have those conversations because it's learning, and it was truly amazing. So for everybody on this call, please. Have the conversation about the cross-cultural exchange program. It's fantastic. And I highly recommend it to others. And, kind of to your point, Tony, and, being in the military and having the opportunity to serve with so many from very, very different backgrounds. I made a bold statement once when I was in the military. I says, the military really doesn't care who you are and what you look like and your color of your skin or it just doesn't matter. I mean, if you just show up every single day as your authentic self, you work hard, you're going to go places. You're going to continue to do great things. And I strongly believe that those things that I learned in the military have really supported my leadership style and my attributes. And, particularly around those defense credit unions that have participated in the CCEP, they brought that as well. What are those lessons learned in the military that you can bring to these experiences from a leadership perspective? It's just not awareness. How do you put action in place? So really, really happy to be a part of it. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, well said, Keith. Ken, you and I shared a common mentor, probably more than just one, right? I mean, the career field you and I were in. But yeah, what did you see in terms of your mentors being from different walks of life in your military career?
Yes, I would say that I was very fortunate to have had several mentors, both African American and non-African American, throughout my 26 years. There is no question in my mind that the combination of all those mentors are the reason that I am here today before you. And whether that be formal or informal. Also I've had, mentors that were enlisted folks as well, to keep me out of trouble and say, no, Lieutenant, you can't do that. You need to do this over here. And so, I look at, life, and why are we here? Sometimes when I get some quiet time, think about it. What's my purpose here? Yes, I have a family, but beyond that, what is my purpose? Why did God put me here? And each and every time, I come back to the central thing that we're talking about here, and that is giving back to others and helping people in all walks of life, whether they look like you or not, different genders, whatever the case may be, showing them dignity and respect at all times, and some having those core values. As Keith talked about, integrity, and inside the Air Force, it's service before self and excellence in all we do. I'm sorry, those kinds of intrinsic values that we share, as a people in general, whether you wear the uniform or not, just people in general, and regardless of your ethnic, background, and so with me, I make it a purpose to reach out and help people as best I can in whatever form that may be. Some cases it may be monetary. Some cases it's just time and giving back time. And as I will tell you, one of the things that I did, when I told the management team, when they, after I was elected chairman, I was like, I want to go visit every branch and shake every employee's hand that works for us, okay? And I want to do that in the first 90 days because that's how important I think it is. And so I've done that with all of our stateside branches. I leave first week in December to go to our overseas branches, spend a week over there and go to their gala Christmas party as well. And I told my folks, as long as I'm chairman, I'm doing it twice a year because that's how important I think it is, to let people know that, they are at the tip of the spear and they're the reason we're here. If it wasn't for those 300 people, Andrews, Federal Credit Union wouldn't exist. And we need to let them know that they make a difference, that they matter as they interact, with the families and our members around the world. And, to sum it up, giving back is important. And that's what I do.
That's great, Ken. And as promised, I'm going to go back to Bobby here. We talked about giving back, and that's what we do, right? And the excellence that we do that and all that. Bobby, real quick, because we're running out of time, but can you give us a quick story on something All In Credit Union has done for a military connected or a veteran member in your community?
Sure, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think it's 32, 33 years now, we do a golf tournament to benefit Army Emergency Relief. And this past year, we raised over $30,000 for that. And Athens was a big part of that. They were a major vendor who contributed to us. I mean, it's not just about golfers. It's about, dealing with your credit union partners, your vendors, and so many of our vendors actually would buy sponsorships so that our servicemen and ladies on base could actually take a day off and play golf with us. And the shared branching piece of this is important too, because that allows members especially if they're like John and they have 6 different credit union memberships, it allows them to move their money around freely and get access to it. And the other thing that we try to do, and that is an intrinsic benefit of dealing with military folks, is their credibility with us, especially when it comes to lending. You've got steady paycheck, and we will oftentimes say yes to them, even though they've had troubled credit or missteps in the past. We obviously give them a lot of grace because that's who our credit union was founded for. So those are some of the things that we do that really brings it back to the people helping people philosophy.
That's great. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, and Army Emergency Relief is huge, right? So that is a worthy charity that affects the lives of thousands of soldiers each and every year. So yeah, good on All In Credit Union for supporting that. Well, folks, we're just about out of time. I wanted to pitch back to SB to close us out here. But before we do that, I want to thank each of our esteemed panelists for being here. I admire each and every one of you for the things you do. And most importantly, thank you for joining us today. And with that, SB, I'll pitch back to you.
Thank you so much, Tony, and thank you for being a fantastic moderator for this session. Lots of wonderful information shared by our panelists, such a wonderful discussion. So yes, at AACUC, we start on time and we end on time. So thank you all for joining us today. Again, thank you to all of our esteemed panelists for all of your valuable insights and wisdom that you shared. To our board of directors, our chapter officers and staff, thank you for the amazing support. I do want to put it on your radar for our next CTC Friday Conversation. As you know, these are every third Friday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So save the date for December 16th. It'll be AACUC and League partnerships. So another fantastic discussion to look forward to. With that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays to you all as well. Panelists, board members, and staff, please stay on the line.